In this episode, a long overdue project update, some little fixes, and the front suspension upgrade begins. Let's go. In our last episode, you saw Project Firebolt running, driving, making boost, and laying rubber. But what's been going on since then, and what's next? Let's get to work. It's been almost 7 months since I've posted up a new video on this truck. Now, Firebolt did make an appearance in my recent Turbo Garage lineup video, and I've been sharing small updates on my Facebook and Instagram accounts, but other than that, it's been pretty quiet for old Firebolt here on YouTube. That wasn't my intention, and I definitely never meant to leave y'all hanging. Life just got super busy, and the car hobby had to take a back seat for a bit. That said, I've been driving this truck a few times a week since I got it running, and absolutely love almost everything about it. More on that later. Tuning-wise, nothing has changed since the last video. It's still on the lowest wastegate spring boost level, and Matt from Sloppy Mechanics' Terminator X tune that you can find on his wiki, along with tons of other great stuff, so be sure to go check that out. So how did I resist the urge to turn up the boost or play around with the tune? Well, this combo runs so good as is, and feels pretty dang fast in this size of truck. Don't get me wrong, I still want to crank up the boost and dial it in on the dyno, but I'm not sure exactly when that'll happen. Even at this low boost setting, driving Firebolt is super thrilling. The combination of the cammed V8 soundtrack, the rear-mounted turbo whistling and chuffing away behind you, and the instant power at any RPM is exciting and very addictive. Oh, and not to mention, it's great to have a truck. I haul stuff all the time in it. So that's the quick update. But in my last Project Firebolt video, you may have noticed a couple changes that I didn't cover in this series, so let's go over those. First up is the transmission cooler. I mentioned in my first drive that the transmission temps were a little higher than I liked. Everything's looking pretty good on the Terminator X. The transmission temp is a little higher than I'd like. So I'm thinking that small transmission cooler we have, even with the fan on it, by itself isn't going to be enough. While I put a lot of time mounting this derail combo under the bed, no amount of ducting or anything else I tried would make it work. The airflow just wasn't there. My next step was to try a much bigger cooler in that same spot, so for that experiment I went with this TrueCool Max, which is a popular choice and is really big at 8.5 by 22 3/4 inches. This worked better under the bed, but after a few hard back-to-back pulls, it just couldn't bring the temps down. I knew all along the problem was a lack of airflow over the cooler core, so I did what I should have done from the start and stuffed this thing all the way up front in Firebolt's nose for some good old priority cooling. This completely solved the problem, and now the transmission fluid stays put even after hard back-to-back runs. Nice! The last change was a set of Calvert Racing's Caltracs. Caltracs are a proven tool for maintaining pinion angle, thus improving traction, eliminating wheel hop, and reducing 60-foot times. While they're available as a bolt-on kit for many cars and trucks on summitracing.com, I worked with their great tech folks to come up with a custom arrangement for our Ford 88 equipped Tacoma. I only drove Firebolt a few times before I installed the Caltracs, and I can tell you they made a massive improvement in how planted the rear feels under all driving conditions. I can't wait to test them out with some stickier tires in the future. One thing that many of you have commented on and pointed out was the off-putting nose-down, tail-up stance that Firebolt rolled out of the garage with. So now we all know how a stock 4-cylinder Tacoma front suspension reacts when you jam an iron block V8 in its snout. Poorly. The truck drives fine under normal situations this way, but it definitely isn't right. From the driver's seat, you feel like you're staring down at the ground, and big bumps in the road cause the suspension to bounce off the rubber bump stops. I really shouldn't have driven it this way for so long, time just got away from me. So since we all agree that this is terrible, let's fix it. There are quick fixes for this sort of thing, like rubber coil spring spacers or even some higher rate coil springs. Those could possibly work with a fair amount of trial and error, but I wanted a complete suspension solution that would not only fix that raked stance, but perform great and give us lots of adjustability. Now before I show you the shiny, springy bits, the key to making all this possible are MJB Fab's coilover conversion plates for the first-gen 5-lug Toyota Tacoma. These plates are either bolted or welded onto the Tacoma's lower control arm once the stock spring perch is removed. My man Michael makes these for Tacoma owners who want an easy way to convert to coilovers to either lower their truck or to beef up the front after a V8 swap. For more info or to order your own, visit the MJB Fab Instagram page. Michael's also done an awesome job documenting his super clean turbo Tacoma build on his YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out too. Firebolt deserves an awesome suspension, so I visited summitracing.com and stuffed my online cart full of everything you see here. First up, we have these QA1 Pro Coil shocks. These billet aluminum beauties offer independent compression and rebound adjustment knobs for all the fine tuning you could want or need. They're designed as a coilover and come with all the necessary installation hardware. Next, we have a set of QA1's coilover springs. They're powder-coated and are made of high-tensile chrome silicone wire, which reduces weight up to 28% and increases travel up to 20% compared with conventional springs. Up next is QA1's roller thrust bearing and washer kit, which will provide less bind on the attachment points of our coilovers. Finally, we have these spanner wrenches, which we'll use to adjust our ride height. They're made to fit in tight places and can be used with a 3/8 ratchet. Prior to ordering everything, I called the great people at QA1 who recommended the parts you just saw. They made this recommendation based on some measurements and the truck's current corner weights. To get those weights, I took Firebolt to a local race shop who graciously let me borrow some time on their scales. So here's what our rear-mounted turbo 5.3 Tacoma weighs in at with a full tank of gas. Our total curb weight is 3,536 pounds with a 60/40 front to rear weight bias. I'm pretty happy with that total weight. It's about 300 pounds less than a stock 5th-gen Camaro SS. Hopefully with our new coilover setup, we can make some adjustments and even out that front to rear bias a bit. Maybe that's wishful thinking, and chucking a couple sandbags in the bed will straighten things out instead. Okay, let's head out to the garage and get to work on a nagging problem that I've had with Firebolt lately. Hey everybody, we're out here in the garage. Now if you check out Firebolt, up on the lift, drain pan under the front. What is going on? Well, let me show you. Oh, look at this. Tore apart under here. So what's going on is I had a very small but annoying power steering leak that started, I don't know, about a month or so ago. It started kind of small. I noticed a little drip on the floor when I parked it. And over time, the little puddle just kept getting bigger and bigger. So right now I have everything tore apart here and the power steering pump completely out. Now over here on the bench, I've got the pump, I've got the pulley off of it. You have to take that off to remove the pump. And then here's this little custom line that we had made that ran underneath the pump. And when I pulled that custom line out, this O-ring sure was kind of smushed. I'm not sure if it was leaking from this O-ring. It was just so hard to tell, with the fluid and, kind of goes everywhere. So I figured I'd take the pump out, inspect everything, and really get to the bottom of this. Because if there's one thing I can't stand, it's leaks. I don't do leaks. So we gotta fix this right now. So for you guys that have worked on these engines, you know that this pulley is a press fit onto here. So you have to use a puller and an installer every time you wanna remove or reinstall this power steering pump. So to make servicing this easier in the future, in case I still have a leak or it needs some other type of service, I got this beautiful little piece here. This is from LSX Innovations, nice billet aluminum power steering pump pulley. Now you can see it's not smaller, there's no over or underdrive thing going on here, just the stock size, has the stock snout on there. Our pump is for an LS1 Camaro, so that's what I picked up. This is for an LS1 Camaro, but they make them for other GM cars too. So unlike this stock pulley, which is solid, you have these access holes here, which will allow you to remove the entire power steering pump assembly as one unit instead of having to, use a puller to pull this off and then remove the pump. So that'll give us access to those little Allen screws that are back here. It'll make servicing this a lot easier in the future. I really should have done this from the get-go. All right, let's get to work reinstalling all this. These bolts had medium thread locker on them, and as you can see, it's kind of gummed up in the threads there. So let's go clean those out before we reuse these bolts. There we go, much better. Okay, I used my little belt routing diagram to install my belt. And there we go. I'm happy with the alignment there. Now I just have to remove the installer tool, fill it up with fluid, and we'll test it out. Okay, we've got the intercooler pipe and everything all back together. You know, over on the workbench, I was afraid that this pulley might be so bright and shiny that it would stand out like a sore thumb under here. But the truth is, down low, and with the belt around it and the intercooler pipe kind of hiding it, I mean, you barely even see the thing. That turned out great. Later on, we can fire it up and check for leaks. I really hope there's no more leaks. You know how I feel about leaks. I don't like them. Thank you for watching, and thank you to Summit Racing for making this video series possible. They are the LS Swap experts and offer everything you need to build the car or truck of your dreams. Be sure to visit summitracing.com, grab a catalog, or download their handy app for all of your horsepower needs. Also, don't forget to come hang out with me in any of these spots. I'd love to hear from you. In the next episode, we'll install our new front suspension and give it a full road test. So with that said, thanks again, folks. We'll see you next time.